Will you retire in Japan? Let's think about that for a second. G'day, it's John here at the Ohazassu channel. Welcome back. If you're a repeat offender, if you're new to the channel, welcome to the show. Nice to meet you. I'm John and I've been here in Nagoya for about 14 years now. And on this channel I talk about life in Japan, and I also do something called Word of the Day at the end of every episode, so make sure you hang around till the end so you can learn a new Japanese word while you're here. Okay, so today's topic, to be honest, was inspired by Naomi over at the channel, which I'm going to link down below. She puts up vlog style videos. They are a family from the UK and they moved to Japan, I think about 2 or 3 years ago. Sorry if I got that wrong, Naomi. But the other day she asked me a question which got me thinking a little bit. And it's a question that I have been asked before, and it's a question I ask myself every now and then. It's, will you retire in Japan? As the title of this video probably says. I might change it, I'm not sure, but that's what we're going to be talking about today. By the way, right now I'm at a place called Shirakawa Koen, which is in Nagoya City. It's a place where I think I showed you guys around the other day. There's the planetarium, the science museum over there in front of me, and it's evening, so the sun is coming at me from the west, and that's why we've got this beautiful golden hour thing happening. Anyway, about the question, will I retire in Japan? Well, at the moment, I mean, this could change, we don't know, but at the moment I do see myself retiring in Japan. And, I have done a video before about how your perception of home changes over time and how Japan feels more and more like home as time goes by. That's not to say that it's without difficulties or without challenges. I think life can be difficult or challenging wherever you go, and but it depends on what you're looking for in life, I suppose, and whether or not you're okay with the sacrifices or the compromises that need to be made with each decision that you make. And in Japan, life is pretty good. It's relatively good. It's safe, excellent healthcare. It's peaceful. There's things just work, and life is reasonably inexpensive. Like things are getting expensive. I have to be honest. Things are getting the cost is increasing especially over the last year or two. But that's the case everywhere, it seems. And I was back in Sydney about a year ago. I think it was last year this time last year. I'm forgetting English. That's another video that's in the works, actually. That's another topic. So Sydney is completely out of control. To give you an idea, a bottle of Coke, when I was there last year, I'm sure it's gone up again, a bottle of Coke from the vending machine was around $4.50 or $4 or somewhere around there for a 600ml bottle of Coke. Here in Japan, it's about 180 yen at the moment, 170, 180 yen. This is vending machine price, okay? So there's a huge difference, a very big difference between the cost of living, I would say. You could argue, and you can argue, that the wages are very different. Japan and Australia have very different minimum wages. In Australia, it's probably around a low $20 per hour. In Japan, it's around 1,100 yen an hour, which just roughly is about half. But, looking at all the other things, life still feels more reasonable to me in Japan. But I think it's starting to get blurry. But anyway, that's a bit of a different topic, I think, and it's one we might touch on in a future video. But whether or not I'll retire in Japan, well, medium term, I can't see myself going anywhere else. There's career, there's family, there's friends, the place feels like home more than Australia does these days. But there's in that video that I mentioned, there's always an anchor where you're from, or anchors, and family, friends, it's where you grew up, places, smells, the bakery that you used to go to is probably still around, and when you walk past it, you get overwhelmed with a flood of memories as you walk past. That happened to me last time I went back, and there's this constant kind of a conflict between I miss it, but Japan is home now, and I don't know where that will lead in the future, but I live with it. It's a reality that I think we all realise and we all know is there. Some people, I think, like to pretend or tell themselves that they don't miss back home or whatnot, but I can't say for sure, but I think all of us miss it at some point, or we miss certain elements. But sure, let's be open-minded, and I don't want to assume what other people are thinking. I don't know what you're thinking. You don't know what I'm thinking. So here we are on YouTube talking it out. Feel free to drop a comment down below if you want to share your experience on that. Do you never miss home? Is there absolutely nothing that you miss from back home? For me, overall, I do prefer living in Japan, but there are some things that I do miss about Australia, and most of those things have to do with, old friends and family and that kind of thing, which are kind of irreplaceable. You can't just sort of find substitutes for those things in a foreign country. But, I was thinking about this, and yes, so Naomi asked me in the comments last time, I think, if I'm going to retire here, and she also did a video recently where she discussed a certain case involving a foreigner here in Japan who's been here for over 30 years and is now in a bit of a crisis situation. And I think she mentioned that her visa might be expiring and there's no hope of renewal. There seems to be a lack of funds, a lack of a support structure and so on, and she finds herself in a position where she is kind of forced, I guess, to go back to her home country. And the advice that she gave to Naomi was, you should plan ahead. 30 years just goes by like that, and it does. I've been here for 14 years, and the first time I came to Japan was, it's like 30 years ago, so I do know what 30 years feels like, and it does go quick. It does go very quick, especially if you're not paying attention. Before you know it, I'm 45-ish now. In 10 years, I'm going to be 55, and then 20 years, 65, roughly retirement age, although people seem to work here in Japan until they're early or mid-70s or even later, depending on what they're doing and their health and so on. So it just got me thinking about stuff, and it got me wondering about all the other people out there in the world. You guys watching from overseas. I know I have viewers from the United States. I've got viewers from Europe, I think, Japan, of course, Australia, and there must be a whole bunch of countries out there. I've almost got 900 subscribers now, so thanks, by the way, to everyone who is subscribed to my channel. If you haven't subscribed yet, by the way, or if you're new, please support my channel by liking and subscribing to my channel, and also share the video to anyone who might be interested in this topic. But it's an interesting one. It does make you think, what am I going to do when I retire? Do I have enough funds? Will you be able to get by? The pension in Japan is very, very low. It's I can't remember the exact figure, but it's very hard to live a comfortable life on the Japanese pension. So it's kind of like an imperative. You have to save. So if you're not saving, if you're watching this and you live in Japan and you're thinking about living here long term, look into saving. There are some really good resources out there in the Gaijin community. There's Retirement Japan, I think it's called. I'll put a link down below. That's run by Ben, I believe his name is. Excellent information there. And I have to hand it to Ben. I think, although I didn't kind of, refer to everything that he said word for word, a lot of the information that he spread out on social media and on YouTube gave me kind of the confidence to look into the options, things like saving money and what are they called? There's NISA and iDeCo and all these systems. The equivalent in Australia would be superannuation, so saving for your retirement basically. And so, yeah, thank you, Ben, for that. Without you, I might not have received that push that I probably needed to get started in that. And, with these things, people like to think that, I'm going to become rich or whatever. It's not about, I don't think it's about becoming rich, and I don't think everyone can become rich. I'm certainly one of those people. And I've come to accept that fact, and I'm kind of okay with it. And it's like, it doesn't mean, though, that you have to be poor, and you can start preparing. And I'm like just an average guy, but I'm thinking about those years ahead, 20 years ahead, 30 years ahead. What am I going to have in the bank account? Is it going to be enough? Life just keeps getting more expensive all the time, and who knows, like, what the situation is going to be. Are we going to be able to find work? At the moment it kind of looks okay. Like, you still see a lot of people in their senior years finding part-time work to supplement their pensions, and it seems to work out. Like I said, you're not going to have a very comfortable life on the minimum wage combined with a pension just doing part-time work. But, I guess you can get by. But if you're in a position where you can do something about it, look into it. I'm not giving any advice here, by the way. You got to do your own research and that stuff. But look into it. Look into whether or not you've got enough, or you can sustain your lifestyle. Whether or not, there are ways that you can improve your situation and all that. I think it's worthwhile, and we can learn a lot from that person who spoke to Naomi, and thank you, Naomi, for bringing that up and sharing it with the community here, because it's something I think that a lot of us do have to think about at some point. And even if you're not staying here, even if you go back to your country, it applies back home as well. It's not like these issues are only in Japan. So do think about it, do look into it. And another thing I want to bring up is, while I was thinking about this, I realised that, a lot of the conversation here in this space on YouTube, where foreigners in Japan are talking about stuff, we tend to, and of course this is completely normal because we live here and we want to share stuff about Japan, but we tend to focus on Japan. And I realised that, there's so much more to the conversation. There's a bunch of people out there who are in the same situation, but just in different countries. So if you're watching and you're, say, for example, from Spain, and you've moved to the States, do you get the same things going through your mind? Will you one day perhaps retire in the States, or do you think about going back to Spain? All of these things kind of crossed my mind today as I was thinking about making this video. And so, yeah, I'd love to hear about what other people go through, how they process this kind of information and stuff. And another thing that came to mind is that there's a whole bunch of Japanese people who have left Japan and moved to another country, the reverse situation of me. And, I've spoken to a few guys who have moved to the States permanently, and they all seem to have a very clear, no, I'm never going back to Japan. Once they get, the residency or citizenship or whatever in America, they're like, yeah, it's clear to me, I'm staying in America. And so it makes me wonder, like, what is it, is it the same thing for them, like the same story? Like that video, that I did about the perception of home changing over time. It's an interesting thing that I just love talking about. Perhaps one day, I'll go out and interview people and see what the deal is. I love talking about this topic, if you can't tell. It's something I think about a lot, and I find it fascinating, and I love how we, how we process these issues. But anyway, I can see the sun is going down, and I'm probably getting a bit darker. So before the video starts looking more horrible than it already does, I think I'll wrap it up and I'll say goodbye. As for word of the day, geez, I'm right in front of the Science Museum, so maybe I'll make Science Museum the word of the day, Kagakukan, and I'll put it up here as well. Sorry, something just fell off a tree. I think it was just a leaf. There's been a lot of insects flying around lately because summer is kind of here already, so you never know what's going to attack you in summer. But yeah, so Kagakukan is Science Museum, and that can be the word of the day today. If you're new to the channel and it was your first time, thank you very much for joining. I appreciate you being here, and I hope you come again. And I'll see you at the next video. Oh, by the way, if you want to look into other ways to support the channel, there's some stuff down below in the description, and you can either buy yourself a nice Ohazassu mug or a t-shirt, and or you can buy stuff off Amazon. Anyway, I'll catch you guys at the next video. Bye for now.